Well, good morning. It is Monday again. It seems to happen every single week. And this morning I've got my NASA t-shirt on. I had much fun because I'm still on a Facebook ban for a few days. So yeah, still on a oh cool. Sort myself out, will you? Still on a Facebook ban for a few days. So yesterday, being Sunday afternoon, I sat and watched through all my favorite YouTube stuff, and obviously, obviously, I'm into cars, but I've also got a hobby, and my my hobby seems to be conspiracy theories. And obviously, you're not allowed to talk about conspiracy theories because people think you're a mental case. But that's cool because obviously, I am a mental case. Um, and I decided, because I'm only allowed to post on my own wall on Facebook, I decided to post a little post to suggest that it is my new belief that the International Space Station is fake. Now, I don't mean that the International Space Station is actually fake, as in it's not there. Good morning, Daryl. I'm just going to waffle on here, Daryl. So bear with me. Yes, I don't mean that it's fake as if it's not up there, because it is, because I've seen it. Because I've seen it where in past, I've seen photographs of it. I've seen people generally being able to zoom telescopes into it and look at it and stuff. But the amount of footage that I've seen where these so-called astronauts are clearly on wires to pretend that they're floating, there is clearly green screen behind them and augmented virtual reality of floating objects, that you have to think to yourself, why are they faking any of that? What would be the point in any of that? And what I would class as the biggest piece of weirdo sort of evidence is, at some point there was a NASA video of them showing around the ex-president, President Bush Senior, and they are wheeling him around in a wheelchair around NASA. And they're talking to him, and people are talking to him, and he's being shown around the headquarters and stuff. And in the background, there is an astronaut that should have been on the International Space Station with a green screen behind him. And that's the biggest piece of evidence for me that suggests that these astronauts are not on the International Space Station. Now, you can go through it and you can deep dive into this stuff. You can, and you can see that astronauts have nearly drowned in their own spacesuits. And the Chinese astronauts, were doing a spacewalk at some point, and bubbles were coming out of their spacesuit. We can't have a bubble in space. You can't have a water bubble, an air bubble in space. So something somewhere is amiss. And that was my Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. I was sitting looking at that. Now, obviously, I don't know about you guys, but I am convinced that the initial moon landing with Neil Armstrong and Buzz, that never happened. I am convinced of that, and no one is going to change my mind. But I am convinced of that. And I was just saying to Andy at Albert Auto Centre whilst we were drinking our coffee, that even if you didn't take the photographs and the video footage and the radio transmissions and things, if you took none of that into account, none of it, and you just looked at the man, Neil Armstrong, and you looked at his demeanour whilst they were preparing to go to the moon, and then his demeanour afterwards, and the words that he used, and the way that he spoke, and the way that he dropped off the grid and didn't want to speak to anybody, and then some of his very later interview, public speeches and stuff, you can tell that man did not go to the moon and he hated it. You can tell he hated it. Obviously, Buzz is a very old man now, and he can't help himself but get confused. And when an 8-year-old girl asks why we haven't been back to the moon, and he says, because we never went, it's because his brain isn't working anymore. He can't just continuously lie. So he's at that point. And Buzz became, when he came back from the moon, being one of the most famous people on the planet, people that people would generally regard as a hero, he just became an alcoholic. At one point, he was a car salesman. He's just like, he just couldn't deal with it. So even if you just take the men that went to the moon and didn't look at any of the evidence, any of the fact that none of the technology would have worked, even if you look at the fact that they would have all been irradiated so badly through the Van Allen belt that they would have died. No one has ever been to the moon, and they say things like, why have NASA say we haven't got the technology anymore, we destroyed it. Can we have a look at the telemetry data from the moon mission? No, we've lost it. What about the initial recordings, the TV footage? No, we recorded over it like it was a friend's tape. It's just it's nonsense. And that was the fun that I was having on Sunday, watching lots of that and reading into lots of that. And so I mean, the bigger question is, if there's two questions really, and one of them leads all the way back to the Big Bang Theory, where nobody knows what's going on, do they? Even scientists don't know how that started. And the other one goes all the way to God, and we're not going to talk about that today. But you just got to think to yourself, where is all that where's the trillion dollars worth of taxpayers' money, American taxpayers' money? Where's that gone? Very, very strange. This isn't a conspiracy channel, but I might actually make one. I might actually make one, because it's my hobby. It's what I think about. It's what I talk about. And you can speak to our Richard. Our Richard's like, who cares? Like, who cares whether they went to the moon or not? And he's like, all I want to do is run another bar of boost through this turbo. Oh yeah, that's fair enough, man. That's fair enough, But there is a considerable life-changing, world-changing scenario where we have not been to the moon. That's it's as big as it gets. It's as big as it gets, and it's one of those what's called a positive conspiracy theory. And the reason it's a positive conspiracy theory is because people do not want to believe that they've been lied to, because they're happy. And good morning, everyone. Morning, Marty. A positive conspiracy theory would be, we went to the moon, we championshiped it, we did it on the first attempt, and we are man, and these are the marvels, these are the things that we can achieve when we set our mind to it. Look how cool we are. And then you can start asking questions like, why isn't there a hotel on there yet? And that's the kind of thing that you get into. Morning, Keith. Because if you look at anything else, whether it be the Wright brothers and their first flight, within a week of the Wright brothers making their first flight, somebody else was like, I can do that, I'll do it. And they did. And eventually it gets militarized, and then it gets commercialized. So if you've got a plane and you make your first plane, well, the second plane that gets made is the government attaching a bomb to it so that they've got superiority to somebody else. After that, it gets commercialized. And it's the same with anything. It's the same with GPS. Somebody makes GPS. The second person uses GPS to further their national security, whether that be tanks or satellites or tracking other countries. And then eventually it gets commercialized, so you can have it in your Ford Fiesta and still drive into a lake. And that's this, and it should be the same with space travel or going to the moon. They say, it's too expensive to mine the moon. Well, nobody knows how expensive it is because nobody's been. The problem that we have is that, I'm waffling now. I know I am. So this will probably get totally deleted off YouTube. But I have a friend called Kieran, and he is absolutely convinced. He's an intelligent man. But he is absolutely convinced that we live on a flat Earth. Now, we could all laugh and giggle and stuff like that, can't we? Because how could we possibly live on a flat Earth? And I'll tell you that the only reason I don't believe that we live on a flat Earth is because from my house, if I had a telescope, I could see Saturn or Mars, Venus, the moon, and every other astrological object that can be observed is a sphere. So why would, from observing, why would I think any different? That's a bit like a dog thinking he's a human, because everyone around him is a human, so he thinks he is one. That's what I'm saying. The only thing that I can do is look up and see everything else in the universe is a sphere, from the sun to the moon, whatever. So why would we be on a flat? Why would we be on a plate? That makes no sense. So there's where I am with it. But he's convinced that you can't have space. Space can't exist. And I'm like, I don't think that's the answer why we fake the moon landings. I think we just didn't have the technology. I think Elon Musk will get us there. He can make electric cars. He can certainly make a rocket that will get us to the moon. But why then did the Americans, if they went to the moon, recently ban everybody else, every other country, and this is just to do with money, and the Americans could control money, from landing anywhere near anywhere they've ever landed on the moon. So they've done a deal, a shady backhand deal, probably worth trillions of dollars, to say to the Chinese, no, please do not land where we landed, because we want to preserve the historical. We want to preserve it in a historical fashion, whereas that's our piece of land, and we don't want it disturbing, so that we can go up there and we can be proud of it and stuff like that. And the Chinese have obviously said, yeah, all right, whatever. But they need to drive a Chinese moon rover over to that landing site, and they need to show me a buggy in space. Morning, Grant. That's all they need to do, is to show me. And one of the biggest problems that we're going to have as just general public right now is that there's going to come a point with the technology where we cannot distinguish between reality and CGI. And we can't. So there's going to come a point where you're looking at something and it looks real. And I'm not talking about Project Blue Book and Project Blue Beam, where they can fire a hologram into the sky that looks real and fake an alien invasion so that we all get put under martial law. I'm not talking about motherships over London, and we all panic and then we do as the government tell us. That's coming. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the International Space Station using augmented virtual reality, so it appears that they're floating around the place and they're not. And sooner or later, someone is going to be able to CGI the old moon landing stuff on the moon, and we're not going to keep up with it. So unless I go to the moon, which is unlikely, I think I'm always going to be I don't even think I'm a conspiracy theorist, because I really don't think that we've been. So that's good. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning.
Should we get Keith's input? Keith won't care, not one bit, but let's ask him anyway.
How's the wonderful people?
The wonderful people are wonderful this morning. Keith.
Yep. Do you need to look at the blank expression on my face?
Do you care whether they went to the moon or not?
Yeah.
Do you? So you care whether they went or not?
Yeah, I think so.
You've got a logo over your face that way. Okay, so you do. So you do care whether they went to the moon, Keith.
Yeah.
Second, do you think they went, or do you think it was faked?
I'd like to think they went.
I would like to think they went.
Yeah, I'd like to think they went, and it was, more accurate.
I would like to think that they went, but also there's more technology in this mobile phone than there was at NASA at the time that they went to the moon. So they got 3 dudes from here all the way to the moon. And I'm not being funny.
On your mobile phone.
I'm not being funny. I could go through Loughborough and get lost in my car. And that's 5 minutes from my house. And I could be like, where am I? But what they can do is, as a ball is spinning in space at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour around the sun, and as the moon is spinning around us, they can easily just point and shoot and just go, pow, let's go that way. See, what I'm sort of suggesting is that it could not have possibly been a straight line. They could have just gone, there's the moon, right, off we go.
Straight.
But if they just did 2 straight lines there and back, by the time the moon and the Earth and everything would have been in a different position. The Earth would have even been where it was, but the week before. So, and then you could watch, if you wanted to, if you wanted to do this for me, you could watch something on YouTube called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon." And halfway through this video is a section of footage where it's several days into the lunar on the way to the moon. So they're in the little rocket ship and they're off towards the moon, and it's several days. Several. It's only maths, okay, Bart. I appreciate it's only maths, and I know I'm not good at maths, but I understand what you're saying. But in this video, there's several days. They're halfway to the moon when they're making the footage. And they make the footage, and somebody slips up and they remove a cardboard cutout from around a window that they've put the camera against to reveal that the Earth is still, massive, meaning they're nowhere near where they said they were going to be. And they've used this piece of black cardboard to make the Earth look like it was distant. Total lies. Basically, the astronauts went up into space and they low Earth orbit, and they floated around for a week, and then they came back down, and they never went to the moon. And that is a fact. This is why, if you look at some of the later NASA missions, when they're speaking on a radio to, I guess it's Houston or some base, wherever that is. So if you, thanks, mate. Thanks. So there's a guy on the moon, and he's the astronaut, and he's taking commands from the guy at Houston. And Houston say, "Right, Dave," and his name's probably not Dave, by the way. "Right, Dave, I want you to dig up a bit of rock there, mate, for me." And Dave goes, "Yeah, all right." And that can't happen because there has to be a delay in radio frequency. There has to be a delay between the baseman saying, "Hey, Dave, pick that rock up," to Dave saying, "I've picked that rock up." There has to be a delay. It's something, again, like Mark said, it's maths, but there has to be a delay, and that's a mathematical delay. So that it can only be, it has to be something like 4 seconds or something. When you're watching the TV and I don't know, Leicester City are playing Liverpool, and they're talking to the guy at the stadium, and the other guy's back in the studio, there's a delay. I can have a delay between 2 TVs in my house. One's a split second behind the other, and they're just signals. So you can't have instant, like you're on your mobile phone and Keith's on his mobile phone there and we're talking. There's still got to be a delay because that signal has to actually go up to space, if that exists, and come back down to his phone. So there has to be a delay of sorts. But if you just use a good old walkie-talkie or a bit of a radio, there's 100% supposed to be a delay on the moon. All faked. All faked. And my Colt is far more powerful than that first rocket, and that's a fact. There was a guy called von Braun or something like that. And he was the scientist that made the rockets. He made the intercontinental rockets, the ones that were supposed to have nukes attached to them and be able to fly across the world and nuke your enemy. And he said, when Kennedy said we're going to the moon, he says, "You're not going to go to the moon, mate, because you're going to need 3 times the amount of rocket power and fuel to do it." That's what he said. And then he had to recant it because Kennedy said, "No, that's very naughty. That's very naughty and not good for our image." Here's our Richard.
Yeah.
Good morning, Richard. How you doing?
Me.
He didn't die in his sleep, so he is here. Well done, Rich. Well done. Oh, God, I got a snotty nose.
Oh, there's no effort on my part.
No effort. No. Yeah, people can tell that, man. One of the first things I've got to do today is order a windscreen. So I'm going to do that. Barnsey, thank you for being a member. Morning. Good morning. On that happy note, I'm going to leave you guys. I'm going to get on with it because in exactly 10 minutes, I better start ordering some parts. So peace out. Have a great day. Thanks for checking out my NASA t-shirt. And we'll morning. And we'll see you all soon. So enjoy the YouTube content that's coming up. And don't forget, if you need to book in or you want to map, give us a shout. See you soon.